Good evening. The special meeting of the Tomball ISD Board of Trustees is now called to order at 5:31 p.m. We are gathered here in the John P. Neubauer Administration Building at 301 South Cherry Street in Tomball, Texas. Today is, what is today? Today is
February 3rd.
February 3rd. Thank you, 2025. For the record, a quorum of the board is present, and I would add they all look alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic, and so we're ready to go. So we're all here in attendance tonight, and this meeting is being recorded in accordance with the Texas Government Code, Section 551.128. So, board, there is an important topic that we need to step into closed session as a little bit of a predecessor to one of the reports that we're going to have tonight. And so I am going to shift gears and move us to convene in a closed session. And so the Board of Trustees will convene in a closed meeting for the purposes authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, including but not limited to the following sections and purposes: Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with board attorney regarding all matters as authorized by law; Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberation regarding purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property; Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation regarding appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee; and Texas Government Code 551.071, deliberation regarding security, personnel, or devices. To be very clear, no voting will take place in the closed session. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes here in this open meeting. It is now 5:33 p.m. Central. We will now move into a closed session. Okay, the board will now reconvene in open meeting. The time is 6:28 p.m. Central. Okay, so next on our agenda are public comments. And I believe we have had two community members sign up for public comments, and so we're going to move into that at this time. And so these are public comments on agenda items. So the first person that has signed up is Megan Jasper, and the second person that signed up is Gary Boudreau. And so, Ms. Jasper, if you're here, I see you, okay. If you'd like to make your way, I do have a statement I need to read, and so I can read it, and you can make your way or wait till I'm completed reading it, however you choose. And so, with that, the board encourages comments about the district from members of the public. However, speakers are required to conduct themselves with proper respect and decorum in addressing the Board of Trustees and in all conduct during a board meeting. Individuals who don't conduct themselves in an orderly or appropriate manner will receive a verbal warning and may be asked to leave the meeting. For any member of the public who is accompanied by a translator, your time will be doubled as required by law, and I don't see in any of the notes here that a translator is required tonight. I will use an electronic timer visible on the right side of your podium. The first minute will be displayed in green. The audible tone will sound when you have 1 minute remaining, and that display will change to yellow. Another tone will sound when 10 seconds remain, and the display will change to red. At the end of the 3 minutes, an audible tone will sound to end the session. Please remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda. In addition, the board has adopted policies to provide prompt and equitable resolution of complaints and concerns for employees, students, or their parents, and the general public. Copies of our district policies and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available on the district website. Ms. Jasper, thank you for your concern regarding our district, and we will hear from you now. And I'm sorry that this thing is in the way. We're having technical difficulties with the big screen, but I can see you. I got you. I'm going to start the clock now. Okay. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks. This probably won't take the whole 3 minutes.
Okay.
I just wanted to talk about the upcoming bond. I just want to say I kind of feel like I kind of feel like it's a bit rushed, this bond, and I believe It's probably because you want to get it on the May ballot because less people show up to vote in May versus November. I just kind of compared it to the bond that you guys had in 2021, where it was almost $500 million that was passed. This bond is around $430 million, I believe. So that's almost $1 billion in 3.5 years. That's quite a lot. This last bond steering committee, they had, I believe they had 5 steering committee meetings between April 7th and May 5th, 2021, 6 months before that November election. So there was a lot of time, and I felt like maybe more thought went into it. This one, there were only 3 steering committee meetings, and there's only 3 months before this next election. I'm just kind of asking you guys maybe to put this on the back burner to November, because I feel like it's a lot of money and it's a lot of wants and not a lot of needs that's on this. In addition to this, I highly suggest the public to go back and look. There was a special board meeting that you guys had in April 2023. And at the 23-minute mark, you guys discuss not having another bond until 2029 for new schools. And some of the board members made really good comments about trying to keep the debt down for the district. And so that's all I have to say. So thank you.
I'm President Pratt, the board, Dr. Z, and TISD leadership. First, I want to thank you for nominating me for that committee. That was a good learning experience, but I've said that before, so let's move on. In the Bond Steering Committee's presentation I made last time, Mr. Lee Wendowski made a question, asked a probing question about the committee's thoroughness and access to data needed to develop prioritizations. I have thought a lot about that since. First, I was a bit embarrassed to learn via the 14 January Community Impact edition that the items the committee prioritized for our consideration were apparently costed yet unrevealed to the committee. Some of that's on us. We didn't ask that question. We asked a lot of other probing questions about finance, but we didn't ask that question. Further, it appears that this 3-session versus 5-session earlier bond steering committees, it was a little different. Those extra meetings could have provided more context and basic information before prioritizing needs as what we were required to do. Admittedly, we had some TISD staff at the tables, and of course, senior administration was always present to further refine the concepts, the presentation and proffered projects. Without more context, the presentations were difficult to assess to give you the recommendations I think you were hoping for. During my 13 January presentation, I realized that the recently elected board members may have benefited from the bond committee's experience as well as limited, as well, provided it didn't violate open meetings regulations and the guidelines that you guys had set up. This is their 3rd or so meeting, and it might have helped on our learning curve to learn a little bit more about the bond program. Further, why rush to the May 3rd election date? Voter turnout is always very low in non-primary and non-general elections, in the Texas legislation will be in session. Legislature is considering vouchers, ESD, not to mention higher homestead exemptions, et cetera. All of this stuff affects you guys. I mean, you guys appoint center every time the legislature meets. One bill is also talking about when to hold those elections. Anyway, I'll skip down. We've got other things to talk about. We talked about the volume, $1 billion you already have in debt, and adding another $400 or $500 million to that. Our grandkids going to be paying for that. Let's be prudent in what we choose to have to do. The board, I mean, there was a big emphasis on fix what needs to be fixed. Let's handle the foundation. Beyond that, I'm going to skip through, and we're out of time here. One of the last things I wanted to say is finally, how will the projects recommended by the staff impact the performance of each student? That's my big question. Will student performance scores for reading, creative writing, STEM raise significantly as a result of what the bond package seeks? Said another way, can continued growth and excellence be measured based on increased spend?
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Gary. Okay, so that concludes our public comment on agenda items. We will now proceed with reports. Just as a reminder, I think our practice is going well. If board members could just ask questions of the administration relevant to the subject matter, certainly, but at the conclusion of the presentation. I'll be honest with you, I'm probably the biggest violator of that, so I got to contain myself. But with that, I turn the floor over to Dr. Martha Salazar-Zamora.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board, those of you in the audience for our special meeting tonight. We are going to continue our conversation in a board workshop. Our presenter is Dr. Stephen Gutierrez, our Chief Operating Officer, and Zach Bowles, our Chief Financial Officer, and actually anybody that was a participant and in attendance. At this time, though, we ask that we move down.
We're going to shift gears,
right,
and
so that
we're going
you
to
can
go to the
see,
table.
that in front of you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anywhere you'd like to sit.
Okay.
All right.
At this point, President, all right.
So I think I'm going to stay here at the podium for sound. Is
Perfect.
that right?
All right,
Okay.
thank you, sir.
So before we get into continued discussion on Bond 2025, we're taking this opportunity to provide just a construction update when it pertains to Bond 2021. And so this will help a little bit with context of what are we accomplishing with the bond funds that have been authorized by the community, and what have we done in Bond 2021.
So, Mr. Bowles, for clarity, though, we are basically letting the community know all the things we said we were going to do in Bond 2021 that now we've been able to accomplish.
We are either accomplished or we're in process.
Thank you, sir,
Yes.
for clarity. I appreciate that.
No problem. So Bond 2021 hasn't come without its challenges. And so that's sort of a piece that we want to hit on a little bit tonight, especially for our new board members coming on board and the community. Since passing the bond in 2021 and backing up just a little bit further, when planning Bond 2021 and those cost estimates, we take a look at what escalation costs, inflation, increases in cost of construction, what that's done over time. And so in the initial planning phases with Bond 2021, we looked at the past 12 years where construction costs had shown an average annual increase of 3%, but hadn't gone above 4% in that 12-year period. And so when we developed the cost estimates for Bond 2021 and submitted that to the board for consideration, we were using an 8% annual escalation. Just out of caution, we had, this is the year after COVID had hit, so we're still in a little bit of that unknown. Unfortunately for us, after the passage of the bond in November of 2021, those construction costs escalated very rapidly. In 2021, costs of constructions went up 13.6%. The following year, they went up another 18.3%. So by the time we're getting ready for those first projects under Bond 2021, construction costs have already risen over 32%. And so that was something very unanticipated. We thought that we had plenty of cushion in there at the 8% because historically, over those last 12 years, construction costs had not gone up more than 4% in any given year. And so what we've seen now in the last year in 2023 and 2024 is that the rise in construction costs has come down. We saw 6% in 23 and just under 3% for this last year of 2024. And so it's coming down as far as the growth, but we are well beyond the pre-COVID levels. The pre-2021 levels no longer exist. And so that was one of our biggest challenges we had to face when we tackled the 21 projects and continuing to do so today. In addition to that, you had some state mandates that were placed on districts across the state that included providing for a full-day pre-K program. And to be able to do that, the district was going to need a facility. That was not originally planned in Bond 2021. So to comply with state mandates of providing a full-day pre-K program, that led to the construction and opening of the Early Excellence Academy in 2023. So those two pieces were big as far as escalated construction costs and added costs to Bond 2021 that weren't anticipated before voters approved that in November of 2021. So just as a general chart there, it'd be hard for a lot of you to see, but you can see over time, this is over the last 16 years, you're looking at those construction costs and the increases over each year annually. You can see those first 12 years, nothing rises above the 4%, but then there you go, bam, in 2021, 22, 23, 24, obviously significantly increased construction costs. So for that, we had to adapt, obviously, to those post-COVID challenges. How do we go about providing all of the, completing all of the projects that we told the community we were going to complete with a bond package of $494 million that now has to adjust for 32% increase in construction costs. So for us, that became a very in-depth planning process. We had to prioritize all of these projects. And when you're going about that prioritization, you're really considering multiple factors. You're looking at what are the targeted dates of completion for that construction. We knew that what we were experiencing were longer lead times on equipment, on getting permits, on just getting connections with utility companies. And so those things factored into needing to accommodate when those projects needed to get started, when we were going to need funding for those projects. And that really led into some of that adaptation. Again, we looked at facility types. So we looked at ways to reduce costs where we could without impacting the integrity of a facility or the environment that students would encounter in the campuses. And so you see the Early Excellence Academy is a bit different than the look of an elementary campus that we're building at West Elementary. We used obviously a different building method there with a prefabricated or pre-engineered metal building for the Early Excellence Academy. So just small things that we had to learn to adapt with and make changes over time. From a construction standpoint, again, we looked at the planning, the site development, the utilities, the permitting. All of those things had to be taken into consideration of when we were going to start projects, how long was that going to take, the costs, and making sure that we had all of that factored in to make sure we were meeting our projected deadlines for opening these campuses. And then obviously our cost estimates. And one other way that we worked to bring those costs back in alignment was changing up a little bit on how we went out for bid on these construction projects. So in the past, we had utilized a method that was called a construction manager at risk. We switched that up to a competitive SIL proposal, which requires design work and drawings to get to 100% before bidding, which means all of the guesswork is taken out of the bid process for the contractor. And so they can come back in with a lot more consistent and appropriate number for us. So we took all of those things into consideration. Those are just changes that we had to adapt to meet the challenges that we faced with Bond 2021. So what did that really mean for us? When you look at Bond 2021, originally, and I'm going to focus on Proposition A. So this is new facilities, buses, things of that nature, renovations. The original bond package that was approved by voters was $466.6 million. And after all of the increases in construction costs, our current planning budget amounts and projected amounts for all of these projects to come in and be built is right now at $514.6 million. That's a $48 million difference between the original approved amount that was voted on by the community and what's being needed to complete these projects. But what I will say there, at $48 million, we have found a way to cover that. And so what we have been able to do is we were able to bring forward remaining funds out of Bond 2021, along with the sale of property. We picked up almost $10 million from the sale of 35 acres. That was land associated next to our wastewater treatment plant at the Beckendorf complex. We have also picked up $2.4 million in connection fees that are coming from our utilities that we're providing to a MUD district. And so we are getting those funds back into the bond funds to help offset the increased costs from bond 2021. In addition to that, we were very mindful about when we issued debt. We wanted to not overburden ourselves with the costs of interest on that debt that was going to be issued, but we also needed to take advantage of the interest rate environment in a time period where prior to COVID, interest rates were very, very low. Now we're in a run where we've been in excess of 5% for over a year. And so now we're coming off of that a bit, but we needed to take advantage of the interest rate environment and bring in interest income that would help offset that. And so with those avenues, we've been able to offset the $48 million that was an increase over what was originally planned in that bond 2021. So we've been able to bridge that gap, so to speak. So really to talk about everything that we've accomplished, looking at Proposition A and those facilities. Obviously, you've got the Early Excellence Academy. Again, that was to comply with new state mandates requiring districts to move to a full-day pre-K program and offer that. We are still in one phase of completion of sidewalks that are being required by the city of Tomball, but that'll be completed by the end of this summer, right? Yeah, by the end of August 2025. Out at Tomball West, this is where a large amount of projects are occurring or have been completed. So obviously that was heavy with the site development of 205 acres that was purchased by the district in 2012. So we had that property for almost 10 years before development began on it. We've completed all of a majority of the site development, including detention ponds, county roads. We're still working on some of the roads, the infrastructure there. The turn lanes along Jurgen, the traffic lights, and so just that infrastructure that we need to be able to place campuses on that 205 acres. We've opened West Elementary this past August. We are in progress with West Intermediate that will open in August of 2025, West High School in August of 26, and the West High School Ag Project Barn. Those two campuses or those two facilities will both open in August of 2026. And we have completed the water plant, treatment plant, our sanitary lift station, and we're in the process of working towards our forced main that will route the wastewater up to our wastewater treatment facility there along 99. So just a few pictures, so you can see some of the scope here. This is out at West Complex. This is looking at West Elementary. And the infrastructure that we've had to build there as far as Cypress Heights Street, the destination drive that'll connect over to Muschke and provide a secondary entrance to the West Complex, our water treatment plant, and our lift station there. In addition, you've got West Elementary, West Intermediate, which has quite a bit of ways. We're working towards that completion in August of 2025. And then the two pictures down below, the one on the right-hand side was taken in December 10th, 2024. The one on the left-hand side was taken January 16th. So in a month's time, they've gotten quite a bit of work done on that campus, but they are moving forward and moving fast with Tomball West High School. In addition to the West Complex, we also have our projects at the Innovation Center. We completed all the site development at that location. That included demolishing some of the old buildings that were there for BJ Services. It involved relocating and enlarging the detention on that site for not only what we have there, but also for the potential future growth. We do have almost 18 acres of undeveloped property that could be used for future growth for the district. We have some work in Building 2 on district offices that is just pending at this point in time. We did convert the building number 3, as we knew it, to the Tomball Star Academy, which is our early college high school. And then we are in planning and process on Building 4, which is to accommodate our maintenance department in the office space adjoining our warehouse. And then you had the opportunity to experience the project show a couple weeks ago at our new Ag Center there at the Innovation Center as well. And then Building 6 just opened this fall, housing our CTE programs and aviation program. Again, just a few pictures of the West complex, or not the West complex, the Innovation Center itself, including our Ag Center, the building 6 where the aviation program is being held. And then you've got Tomball Star Academy being relocated to their own facility, getting them moved out of Tomball High School. And then just some of the site development work that we've done there to provide some additional parking for the Ag Center and the project show, as well as our detention expansion and just prepping that site there, the undeveloped land for potential future development. At Tomball High School, another bulk of projects have occurred there. We've done a cafeteria service line upgrade, a much needed facelift there for Tomball High School. The Ag Show Barn, the former Ag Show Barn, was converted into additional CTE space, and primarily there is a lot of space for welding as well. And then just recently over the Christmas holidays and at the end of December, start of January, we were able to go into Tomball High School and replace a couple of key infrastructure equipment items there at Tomball High. That's the cooling towers and a rebuild of their chillers, as well as the roof replacement. Those are pieces of equipment that were over 20 years old. And so those were in need of replacement. They had reached the end of their useful life. And so those items needed to be replaced in order to ensure that we were able to maintain operations at that campus. Last thing that we want is to go into summer and have something break down and impact instruction for our students. So we were able to complete that replacement over the Christmas holiday and get that campus back up and running before students were back after the Christmas break. We're in process on a fire alarm system update, so that's replacing the fire panel there at Tomball High School. Hopefully cut down on all of those fire alarms that have been going off lately. And then a little bit of rework for security vestibules and other projects are in the works. They're just pending at this point in time. Again, just a few pictures just to showcase a little bit. The cooling towers replacement, the serving line, definitely a big change from when I saw it before that. And then our CTE hallway, the hallway and the welding room, that's there at the old Ag Show Barn. And so our other projects that are in process or pending right now, obviously that is the Creekside Park 5th grade addition. That's in progress but set to open in August of 2026. Tomball Junior High dance is another area that was in Bond 2021 that we are in process with, that's pending right now. And then looking at some of our various campuses to rework the security vestibules just a little bit to bring them in alignment with some of the new campuses that we've built since we originally did the security vestibules at those campuses. So those are some pending items that are still in process today, and just wanted to bring that forward as an update to the board and make sure that you had an opportunity to review that. Any questions before we move on to Bond 2025? Okay. Come on. All right. So we started this discussion last month at our last board meeting in January, and so briefly, as we continue discussions on Bond 2025, wanted to just recap that original meeting just a little bit for everybody. And so when we talked about Bond 2025 at the last meeting, we had some key takeaways, and that was one, with working with our financial advisor and our financial professional. We work through evaluating what the capacity is for issuing debt. So that takes into consideration where our current tax rate is. That takes into consideration growth of our tax base. It also evaluates opportunities for refunding debt that has already been issued, as well as opportunities that we've taken over the last several years to pay off debt early and create the ability to issue debt, but doing so without an increase to our total tax rate. And so through that evaluation and analysis, what we have determined is Bond 2025 could support a max bond package of $430 million. Any more than that would cause the district to have to increase the tax rate. We are not going to increase the tax rate at $430 million. And so that was one of our mainstays when we were developing what could this bond package go to. One was no increase to the total tax rate. Two was making sure that we were going to maintain an average weighted maturity of our debt of no more than 15 years, and also look at the life of our debt being no more than 25 years. And so putting that in perspective, the state of Texas allows school districts to issue debt up to 40 years. Tomball ISD does not have a maturity for its debt beyond 25 years. And so we, as a district, have historically and continue to maintain that as a priority when we look at our bond packages to ensure that we are not burdening future generations with debt that could be handled now. And so we take advantage of that at every step of the way to make sure that we maintain that shortened average maturity and that we are maintaining that today's generations are paying for that and not the future. One other key one is to keep in mind that multiple propositions based on the committee work, the departmental and facility assessments, multiple propositions are going to be required by law. And so that's coming from the state of Texas. And so when you look at the ballot, there's likely to be a proposition A, B, C, D, depending upon what is fully approved to move forward. And then our timeline, obviously we talked about that, Mr. Boudreau hit on that just a little bit earlier, but the timeline for calling a May board meeting is to do that at the February board meeting. So in order to have an election on May 3rd, the board would need to call for an election at the February board meeting. So again, touching on the mandate or the reasoning behind having to have multiple propositions. The 86th legislative session in 2019 really changed the rules regarding proposition language for school districts. Prior to 2019, you were able to have a single proposition that encompassed everything, whether that be the new facilities for growth, whether that be renovations, athletic facilities, technology, fine arts facilities, those could all be encompassed in one proposition. In 2019, after they made the rule change, you now have what are considered special purpose propositions. So the general proposition, which is typically Proposition A, is always reserved for the building of new facilities, buses, renovations of existing facilities, and the purchase of land or acquisition of land or other facilities is also included in that. But when you talk about special purpose propositions, they're really focusing primarily on, I say primarily, they are very specifically focused on the building of stadiums that seat greater than 1,000 in capacity. They're looking at natatoriums, recreational facilities, performing art facilities, and the acquisition or update of technology equipment that's not for the safety and security or construction of a new facility. So you really have, you've got 5 hard special purposes that the state of Texas is going to require to be separated out for voters to approve or deny separately. And so one of the big key words in there, and when you see it, is renovation. It's prevalent in the first 4. And that's because if you already have an existing one of those facilities, if you're doing any type of renovations to it, the state's going to require you to split that out into its own special purpose proposition. So as we move through it, just keep that in mind of why we've got some things split out the way we do. Again, continuing with the recap, but not going full in-depth to each one of these. Proposition A, the summary there, we had elementary 13 which was looked at as a need to alleviate growth that we were seeing in the west part of the district, primarily Grand Oaks and Rose Hill. The Early Excellence Academy would be a new facility in the south end of the district to mirror what we've created here in the city of Tomball. And then a replacement of Tomball Intermediate School. That would be rebuilding at a different site the current Tomball Intermediate, but then also when you look at the next program expansion would be for special services. That would be something that could be accommodated at the current Tomball Intermediate campus as a repurpose of that facility. Program expansion for CTE, safety and security items, facility infrastructure replacements. That again is targeting our aging facilities. We've got roughly 50% of all of our campuses are older than 20 years, which means that the majority of that major plant equipment has reached or is reaching the end of useful life. And so we have to at this point in time, preventative maintenance has gotten us past useful life, but now you're on borrowed time a little bit, so we want to address all of that facility infrastructure, and we want to make sure that we keep our facilities moving forward into the future. Fleet additions and replacements, that's also going to include buses that are needed for growth over the next 5 to 7 years, as well as replacement of fleet vehicles for both our custodial, transportation, and maintenance departments. The Transportation Center expansion would be a look at that current site there on Baker Street, where we would need expansion to accommodate the fleet that we would be expanding in the previous item, and also accommodate the growing number of staff since that building was built. Fine arts updates and athletic facility upgrades are replacement cycle type items. So that's replacing band equipment as far as instruments go, uniforms. Athletic facility upgrades are going to really touch on every facility across the district, every area, sport, with the exception of the requirement to break out any facility upgrade or renovation that has a seating capacity over 1,000 spectators. So from Tomball ISD standpoint, that's going to only incorporate Tomball High School Stadium, the old, at Tomball High School, as well as the TISD Stadium. Those would be our two athletic facilities that would meet the requirement to be split out by law. The remaining athletic facilities do not have in excess of 1,000 seating capacity. So they're able to be incorporated into Proposition A. An elementary library refresh would take a look at our elementary campuses prior to 2021 to get those refreshed and bring in more of a focus on STEAM or STEM and bring that into our existing libraries, similar to what we have at Grand Oaks, Tomball West Elementary. And then existing campus refresh would be, again, taking a look at our existing campuses and what we would need to do there from furniture, flooring, painting, those type of things to bring those back up to standards today. And then Connections Academy, this is looking at the current location for Connections Academy for the district. That is off of Kiefer Street behind the Staff Development Center. And so we would be looking at some renovations there in some unused portions of that facility that would allow for expanded CTE programs. And so in Proposition A, this is the originally brought to the board last month at just over $408 million. And as we continued, we talked about Proposition B, again, was technology for staff and students. This is Chromebook refreshes, smart panel replacements, staff device refreshes. So these are items that are not tied to safety and security of facilities. They're not tied to the construction of a new facility, so they've got to be broken out into its own proposition. Proposition C are the athletic upgrades for, I made the note to take Tomball Memorial off of this, and I did not. This would be athletic upgrades at only Tomball High School, as they would be the only facility required to be split out under Proposition C because they exceed the 1,000 seating capacity. So that would be looking at primarily the replacement of turf and track The turf is 10 years old at this point, and is reaching the end of its useful life. Proposition D was a natatorium along with renovation and upgrades to the existing natatoriums. And so we had, just under 22 million that was set aside for Proposition D. Proposition E was a focus on multi-use facilities. These would be fine arts and athletics facilities that would be placed at each high school, Tomball High, Tomball Memorial, and Tomball West, and would be this is a facility that can be shared among those organizations that allow them to continue practicing, continue performing inside in inclement weather. And also, I know Dr. Gutierrez will touch on this in just a little bit, but it plays itself to the safety of our students. So, initial bond package presented to the board last month was a total of $529 million. Obviously, that well exceeds the $430 million cap that we've already said we will go no higher than to ensure that we do not have an increase to the total tax rate. So the challenge from the board at that meeting was to come back to our list. What items could we peel back and bring down a bit to bring us in line with the $430 million. So what we did there, and highlighted in red, would be the changes. With Elementary 13, initially we were talking about the purchase of land, site development, as well as the construction of that elementary campus. But that elementary campus wouldn't be constructed until that elementary was intended to be constructed and opened in 2030. Okay, so hitting that estimate of what we expected another campus we would need in 2030. After taking a look and going back through demographics, what we were able to piece together is we could delay that a bit. So what we would propose there is to remove the construction of that elementary from this bond package, leaving only the purchase of the land and the site development that would be needed to prepare for that campus in the future. We took some general reductions from the program expansion for CTE, facility infrastructure replacements, athletic facility upgrades, and elementary library refresh, and to bring the Proposition A total down to $331.5 million, just a little above. So again, you can see, yes, sir. Okay. So again, when we came back to the demographics, we looked at when are our facilities going to get into trouble as far as an overcapacity situation. When you're looking at the screen here, highlighted in yellow, the bright yellow is when those facilities, those campuses start to exceed what we consider our 85% capacity. So that's really our sweet spot for the campus use. Is when we get to 85%. Once we start to pass that, we know that there's overcrowding on the campus. We've got to start considering a solution for that, whether that could be a rezone like we did in the prior year, or it could be an addition of portable facilities or a new facility. And so as we look through it, your two campuses that are highlighted in red there are Grand Oaks Elementary and Rose Hill. Those two campuses, the red represents them reaching full capacity and exceeding full capacity. So we know that we've got two campuses over the span of the next 10 years that are going to reach full capacity and need relief. So for the process of being able to say that we could peel off the construction of an elementary campus from this bond, we looked at those capacity numbers. We looked at what we have available across the district. And we feel comfortable in being able to say that we could delay the construction of that campus until potentially 2033 to open in 2033 by either utilizing some sense of a temporary rezone or the addition of portables at some of these campuses to help alleviate that overcrowding and push the need for constructing that elementary further down the road. The other major change that we made was we revised Proposition D when we talk about natatorium. and we removed the construction of the natatorium at Tomball West High School. And we chose to present delaying that until a future bond proposition, or bond election, I say, because we have done so. We have opened a high school without a natatorium in the past. We opened Tomball Memorial in 2011, and for 9 years, we bused students from Tomball Memorial to Tomball High School in order to practice, in order to compete, and we can say that during that time frame, we were successful in that. And in 2021, January of 2021, we opened Tomball Memorial High School's natatorium. So we do feel comfortable that there is a model there that we can follow, utilizing Tomball Memorial High School's natatorium to provide a practice space for both Tomball West and Tomball Memorial. So revised bond 2025 package with the removal of the construction of elementary 13, but leaving the purchase of land and site development, along with the removal of the construction of the natatorium for Tomball West High School and our general reductions in the other categories, we bring the total for all of our propositions down to $429.9 million, below our 430 max capacity, to ensure that we can proudly and confidently tell the community that we would not have a tax rate increase. And if I back up a little bit, we talk about bond 2021. Yes, that was a bond package for $494 million. We have issued all of that debt since bond 2021, and there has not been a tax rate increase in the district. In fact, we have, in that time period from 2021 to now, we have done nothing but decrease the total tax rate for Tomball ISD. So what that would look like on a May 3rd bond election, obviously because of the requirement to split out propositions, you would have a Proposition A for new facilities, new schools, infrastructure, renovations, transportation, the technology and safety updates. You'd have a Proposition B for technology, Proposition C for athletic updates for those facilities that exceed the 1,000 seating capacity. D, you would still be required because we would be doing work to an existing natatorium. And E would be our multi-purpose, multi-use facilities for fine arts and athletics. Any questions before we continue on?
Zach, with respect to the natatorium D, the AAE, is that just, you can put that in both schools?
That would incorporate a little bit of renovation in both facilities that are needed, like resurfacing. Right. There's likely be more work at Tomball High. Yeah. Currently, yes. Yeah.
Zach, on Prop B, can you explain how that debt service works for technology? I mean, we're not paying that out over 15 years.
Right. So when you look at items like technology, I mentioned districts can issue maturities out to 40 years. When we look at items like technology, we're going to go through this listing and everything that's being purchased and funded with bond funds. When we issue debt, we're going to match up the maturity of that debt with those items that are being purchased. So if you've got technology items that have a useful life of 5 years, we're going to package that debt into a maturity that matures within 5 years to ensure that we're not financing a 5-year piece of equipment over 25 years or further than that. Right.
So I mean, basically, we're paying for the equipment in the time that
right.
we use.
We're going to pay for the equipment within the time period that it's useful for.
Now, on Prop A, the transportation part of that, does that include like new semi and like U-Haul trucks for like the band and this stuff like that?
So in addition to the buses, we would be talking about replacement of the semis that are used for transporting band equipment, the trailers there. And so that would also be included.
And over, one more quick question, I'm sorry. Over all the bonds that we have done through the district, we have never raised our tax rate.
So I've been a part of the bonds so I've been around since the 2013 bond. I've been in the district since 2010. In that time frame, we have not increased the total tax rate of the district.
But people's taxes may go up, but that's not because we've raised the tax rate. It's because the home values have gone up, which we don't have anything to do with home values, correct?
So the school district only sets the tax rate. The values of homes are set by the appraisal district. So no, we do not set the appraisals or
So the
the
appraisal
values of the
district
homes.
is like Harris County, correct?
Correct. Harris County, Montgomery County.
Tangent to that, when you make the promise of no increase to the total tax rate, is this even on? Oh, yeah,
It
it's
is.
easy. You have a forecast of appraisals going up, right? Talk to me about the inputs into that
So when we
calculation.
talk about obviously, part of that analysis is looking at the tax base growth. We take a very conservative approach. So we're not going to assume that our tax base is going to continue to grow indefinitely. We know that over the last 3 years, it's grown significantly, but we also aren't going to consider it continuing to grow at that exponential rate. You talk about 15, 12% over the last couple of years. We've backed way off of that. So as we develop our projection of what we can sustain from a debt standpoint, we start with right around 6%, and within 4 years, we've backed that all the way off to 0% growth. So beyond 4 years, we're expecting no growth in the total tax base. We can continue to meet the requirements of that debt.
So you've considered new homes being built, so more homes paying into our tax base, as well as appraisals going up on all the existing tax base, knowing that we can bring more money in
To help
with the same rate.
Right. So yes, you take that into consideration because we are still in a fast growth district. There is growth that's still there, people moving into the district. So yes, there's going to be some new home growth. There's also, we know what the appraisal district has done over the last few years, but we also make a conservative approach when we go about that to ensure that we're not overestimating what that potential increase could be.
So 4 years.
Right.
4 years you allow growth, then you hold the tax base there.
But each of those 4 years, you're descending growth. You're not saying it's going to continue to grow this much for those 4 years. You're descending your growth expectations each of those 4 years till you get down to zero.
And then you stay static at that 50 year, if you will. That's what you're trying to map out to see. If
Yeah.
you just got growth for 4 years at a reasonable.
Right.
But it's not just homes, it's businesses coming in as well.
That there are businesses allocated. Yeah, they're in that tax
It's
base.
just tax base.
It's
right?
just tax
It's
base.
indifferent as to what it is.
Right.
It's just tax base. That base.
Yes.
But do you forecast appraisals continuing to go up past the 4 years of the existing?
We,
Okay.
yeah, no, beyond 4 years, no. We're not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're planning.
It goes over 4 years, and then that's the level. That's 25.
I don't want appraisals to go up at all,
Yeah.
but from a 5, 10, 15, he's taking a conservative approach and not assuming it's going to go up every 15 years. So that's some of the success since 2013 and beyond, or before that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Zach? I have a couple questions. So when I think about Gary Boudreau and Chris Sampson's presentation last month, and this may be to Dr. G, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
With the reduction or the revision to the proposal, how does this stack up against the two big themes that I heard was addressing older facilities and bringing them up, and then how does this do against sort of the the concern of the weather, and addressing that with that one proposition on the multipurpose. Can you just kind of talk through with $100 or $100 million, I can't even say it, with $100 million reduction, are we still meeting the spirit of what the Bond Facility Study Committee was recommending?
I'll take the first part of that, which was focus on our existing facilities. And so that definitely still plays a primary role within Proposition A. Removing the construction of the elementary was also something that was a topic of discussion within the steering committee. There was the talk about, do we need the elementary now? Or can we just do purchase of land, site development? Go ahead and get it for the district. So feel comfortable that yes, with what's in the revised Proposition A, continues to address our older facilities and make sure that those are at the forefront of this one.
Can I expand on your weather question? Could you add into that an explanation of what UIL is doing, not only for our athletes, but for like all UIL, band, fine arts, everything that is associated with weather?
Yep.
Awesome. I think the next portion of the presentation goes into detail. There was just a little bit of a piece of this, because I knew there'd be some questions about the multi-use facility and the conversation that we had with the committee. And so I'll kind of pick up here and share.
Hold on. Can we go back then, Michael, along your question, though? Zach, you're talking about the bulk of A is going to be, existing facilities. But if you look at B and C and D, aren't they all enhancements to existing facilities?
B is not,
Because that's not a
B is
facility.
not
That's
facility
running
driven,
fiber
but
optics or
C
things like that.
and D would be existing facilities, yes.
Yeah. So I think it's broader than just the,
I'm just making sure we're keeping the
Yeah.
integrity, that with the reduction of 100 million, did we retain the integrity of what that hardworking committee put together or not? That was the question.
yeah. So, but I was just trying to take it out of just not only Prop A, but when you look at C and D, they're both existing facilities.
Before I jump into the multi-purpose facilities, I do just want to echo that as a cosign of what Mr. Bowles said as far as the sentiment of the committee. The reductions of what we've done as administration definitely are aligned with the discussions and the recommendations of the committee overall. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the multi-use facilities. This is a snapshot inside of one of the multi-use facilities across the state. There are currently, right now, under construction or currently in use across the state, 115 multi-use facilities similar to this structure that you see across the state. We've used the word multi-purpose, multi-use. I particularly like in the research, it's just one that we came across, multi-program activity centers, because I think that really captures, there are educational programs that are attached to this facility, and that brings all of those participants and uses to light. And so potentially, these will be multi-program activity centers. That was used by Garland ISD, and they will be putting 7 of these, 1 at each of their high schools, and those are under construction, I believe, currently. And so, does anyone by chance happen to know the name of this device, or can tell me, Ms. Salem, I'm sorry, you cannot answer this question. Does anyone know what this device is or does? This is a wet bulb globe temperature reader, okay? So this is also known as the WBGT a measurement. So this is the wet bulb globe temperature, and what the wet bulb globe temperature does, it's great. It captures more data than, say, temperature or heat index. This takes into factors such as relative humidity, wind speed, solar radiation, sun angle, if there's cloud cover, to name several of those factors that produce a measurement. And so there are 2 classes in the state of Texas. This here of the Tomball and the greater Region 4 area fall under Class 3. So when we read our wet bulb globe temperature, we must follow these guidelines as far as outdoor activities. And again, first and foremost, this is for the safety of our students and the staff that are out doing strenuous activity in these temperatures. Now, I commonly get a question from coaches, from parents, from athletes to say, okay, can you tell me really though, what is 90.1 an equivalent to temperature or our heat index level? And so while they are interrelated, there's not a correlation to say that a 97 temperature is an 87 measurement. There are some correlations. The higher the air temperature, that will affect both your overall temperature and your wet bulb globe. Your wet bulb globe and your heat index are both impacted by humidity. And so the higher the humidity level, your higher your heat index and your wet bulb globe. And so your wet bulb globe is an independent measure to let you know the impact the overall weather conditions will have on a person having strenuous activity. When do we take this? We take this 15 minutes before an outdoor activity, so the coaches will log this in, and there is a log that shows what time they logged it in, and subsequently 30 minutes, every 30 minutes during the duration of that practice. And at any time, it dips into a new level that requires a new response for the administrator, whether that be the availability of a cold bath on site because it's at a certain level. Someone needs to drop their core temperature immediately, put them in the cold bath. To an extreme situation, practice must halt. And we did have to take some extreme measures this past year, starting football practice at 5 a.m. I know we may have received some phone calls, or if you're a parent who has a band student or a football player, like students need their rest, right? But in order to provide students first and foremost with classroom time and ability to compete and acclimate to the weather, we have to get them out at a reasonable time where they can practice. So the main driver behind all of this conversation of the proliferation of multi-use sites across the state is safety and the impact of weather on sport. So again, the primary driver again is safety for extreme conditions. I do just want to say this. As a fact, it is hotter. We're not here to debate the causes of what has caused it to be hotter. I think we can agree that back in the day does not exist in today's current standards, because all of the data will say that these are the hottest years that we face on this planet, right? And so you can look at certain in the South and Southwest, these are the hottest summers we've had on record. Just down at the airport where they keep some of the official records, we've had 43 times we hit the high mark, night times 57. In Tomball, where does this impact us? We had over 100 days of weather impacted 100 days where we were impacted by the weather. So that can be altering your practice schedule, having to stop practice altogether, or adhering to the UIL heat-related plan. And so, again, that could also be inclement weather, so severe raining and such to where students were not able to practice. Sebastian Coe, he's the president of the World Athletics Organization. Basically, the quote, with the rise of the temperatures, this is going to be an existential threat to the possibility of even doing sports outside. And so that may seem like a drastic stance, but when you consider the times our students are participating in these activities and the strenuous activity that they are doing outside, whether it be marching and playing with their tuba, or doing a left side pull. I wasn't a lineman or a football player, but you're out there running. This is definitely a matter of life and death, and unfortunately, we have seen an increase in heat-related deaths across the United States. Thankfully, none in Tomball ISD. But so that was primarily the safety driver. A big piece of this, and we could go on and look at websites and publication for bond materials, but this idea of this is multi-use, right? It's not just in a name. We have CTE classrooms, fine arts suites, indoor fields, band, drill team, cheer practice, robotic competitions, all athletic practices, job fairs, GT showcases, elementary field day. This one here in Argyle was really also highlighting the fact that it was going to reduce transportation costs or moving campuses, the travel between two campuses in their district. And so a variety of districts highlighting the multi-use aspect and how it's going to benefit their district. Yes, It is the shape and the size of a football field. So for me to say this is not a football related activity, yes, football practice will be held in this activity, in this multi-purpose center, but I'm going to tell you this is bigger than football. And if you look at the amount of time where current districts currently allocate and schedule practice, you will see that football is a very, very small portion of the day in the life of a multi-program activity center. So let's look at marching band and color guard. These are actual students here at the top. I believe that is Keller ISD. Students participating. This is one of their high schools in marching band. This is in the summer. So this is one of the big highlights, again, when you consider the number of students, consider the Roaring Blue Band out there, all 300 plus students marching safely in an indoor practice facility. You see some examples here. The bottom is a rendering of what is happening in Gregory Portland ISD for their band and color guard. Let's take a look at some other sports and activities. You see going from left to right, baseball and softball. So all of these, the field can be just like our stadium is striped for football, but also competitive soccer. So we have soccer. We could line these up for baseball and softball. You see those lines there. In the middle one down, the middle center, you see some outdoor track lines, but in the middle, there's also some indoor track. So this is a field and track facility as well. It's all depending on how we would design the fielding for the striping for multi-use. Also, these multi-facilities purpose, they could be dropped down with the use of large nets to create, say, 35-yard length chambers, where students can bring out their drivers and really, for golf, hit those out and test their game. So you see, again, multi-purpose. You have the possibility for soccer as well. We mentioned robotics, and so the field could also be repurposed for a robotics competition. So we have a circuit, we have something happening at the TIC, we could have something happening at all three multi-purpose centers for robotics competition. I believe the picture on the right below is a field day or some type of community, school-wide community event for younger students and parents, community members. The pictures on the right was told that these are external groups that come in and rent the facilities after hours. So you do your kickball leagues or your different indoor soccer or things that folks like to do outside, indoors physical activity. So a great opportunity. I mentioned the ability to have these nets to create individualized chambers. So if you think about this, on one side you could have baseball, you can have soccer having a game in the middle. On the other side, you could have golf or the band or someone else, your ROTC, practicing for their competition. So these are real life examples. How do I know that? Because these are some sample schedules that were provided to our fine arts director and our athletic director. You can see football is one of those first ones, but 2 days out of the week, drill team is in there before them. So you see cheer, color guard, PE class. So this is also co-curricular use as well. ROTC, football. These are football classes. So again, this is where students are also earning credits. After school, a big chunk of the day goes to band, and then afterwards, from 7 to 9, consistently across, is open for rentals. And so, like many of the other things that Zach has talked about, we can turn this into an enterprising activity along with our other facilities across the district. This is just one example. This goes back to 2019. If your attention to detail, and you saw that all the way at the top. So these have been around for many years. Again, you see the same structure to many of these examples. Drill team, we have JV football, winter guard. So I know, again, not just band, but the cheer and the color guard, these are also happening at the same time. So that will be a chamber drop down and individuals will be able to have their activities. You see several of those smaller activities stacked on top of each other to show multi-use at the same time. Okay, so the question about how did we get here? What was the pulse of the committee? You heard, I believe, some impassioned comments last time from our parents, or at least one of our parents, our community members. that spoke about the possibilities for the multipurpose center. There was a great deal of conversation from parents in all sectors. Yes, athletics, but all, fine arts, particularly band, who were some of the loudest proponents for the multi-program activity centers. And so the key thing here, and this was brought up by the committee, that this is bigger than football. And a recognition that in 2021, we missed the mark because we were within 100, or it might have been slightly over 100 votes from passing the multi-use facilities in as part of Bond 2021. And so there was a substantial amount of conversation from the committee members, key folks who represent, say, athletic booster clubs, fine arts clubs, who are key parents in there, to say, we know that we can activate our networks and people have an interest in this, and young athletes, young musicians, young individuals, their parents, their grandparents who want to see their students safe, doing the things that they love. We believe that we can activate the network and really focus on the communication to pass these. And so there was a recognition that these were on the ballot in 2021. That was a direct question asked, I believe, by you, Gary. And so one acknowledgement that we didn't do a good enough job, and that we know that we can do better, and that if the board does decide to put these on, the committee said they would do their job to ensure that they are passed. And so you asked the question about the discussion from the committee, and so I want to make sure that I did convey that. And I do believe there are other committee members that were here for any questions if needed. So what did they say? Out of all the additional propositions, B to E, that we did put on the ballot, the multi-use facilities was the top priority. And then you see where the others would fall through. Their prioritization of the natatorium also weighed in on the administration's decision to delay the natatorium. Also, the fact that there is a model, history does show that we can do it successfully. And so that would be something potentially that we would bring to the district, say with the next elementary school, if that was something we decided to do. Those were the questions related to the multi-purpose center specifically. I do believe Zach has some additional information regarding bond passage between some of the two election dates, but I do want to pause for any questions related to the multi-program activity centers or multi-use centers, whichever term you prefer.
You said 110 facilities across Texas currently or under construction. How many districts is that?
I can provide that number for you, an entire spreadsheet. Mr. Larry, if you would like to even pull that up, we can show that, but I can provide that for you. I can provide that to Dr. Zamore to send that to the board. It's okay, Larry.
And then the slide you showed for Argyle ISD, their proposition, can you go back to that? I guess, was that their kind of marketing material for?
Yes, all three of those were just samples. Again, I mentioned we could spend all day sending several or websites, but these were just three that I picked that I thought showed multi-use. Argyle specifically was to minimize travel, so there were some logistical things that they were trying to maximize. So just use that. Districts use different justifications for putting these on the ballot.
Thoughts on 13 million compared to what we're looking at, which would be more like 25 million apiece?
I did not put the date on this, and so these are old materials. Zach would probably be able to give a better result on that, but as he discussed earlier with the cost of inflation, these are older materials.
The longer you wait, the higher the price. That's just the way inflation works, unfortunately.
The other variable is going to be size. It's going to be whether it's air conditioned and not air conditioned. And so what we have in there, the pricing that you see is a full 80-yard facility with full AC. So that would be part of the reason why you see a difference in the costs.
Jennifer, any more questions? Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Coco? Good? All right. John? Good?
Yeah, so With respect to the facility, I mean, do we want to drill down on what we're actually bidding out there at this time? I mean, this is the time to do it, right? So I guess I would like to better understand what is spec'd out in this facility.
So the 76 million that you see in Prop E, that would be for a 80-yard field with your end zones. It's going to include your ability to drop down nets and partition it off. It's also going to be full AC. You see the picture here, they just have the big fans. So this facility would really be fully AC, just like if you were in the building here. So controllable for heat, for cold, you would be able to make that adjustment. Whereas in that facility there, you're only providing fans. So different costs when you talk about fully conditioning that space. And then again, depending upon what this looks like, the size of the eaves to provide for the height in the middle to sustain practices from baseball, softball, football, soccer, not having too low of a ceiling to accommodate those practices.
So we went through several iterations 4 years ago, 5 years ago, with respect to what these buildings would look like, and we did some value engineering. So I guess I'm wondering, what have we done this time, thus far, to do some value engineering on what these facilities might look like?
So we've approached it the similar way as we did last time. We initially started out at 100, a full-size field, compared to coming down to 80. So that 100-yard field, I believe when we looked at it fully AC conditioned, was approaching 100 million. Obviously, that would not be in line with the 430 million that we were looking for. So coming off of that is where we've come down to the 80-yard field and can stay within the proposed amount.
Okay. So we feel like this is the bare minimum that would be acceptable in Tomball ISD for these types of multi-purpose facilities? Or is this the Chevrolet? Or
I
is
think
this the Buick?
this would provide our students with adequate, a safe space to practice during the weather conditions. So this would protect them from the elements. I don't believe this is the Taj Mahal of multi-purpose facilities. I think this is adequate to take care of the needs of the students.
So the exterior is metal building?
Similar to what I think we did with the event, Early Excellence on metal with.
And you got your steel span.
So we've done value engineering on this. We think this is the minimum amount that we could get by with for a facility that's considered adequate in Tomball ISD.
This would be for an adequate facility, but also incorporating the cost of construction over time, because you've got to factor in when would these be completed. We looked at obviously what happened with bond 2021. You saw construction prices go up, so we've incorporated a escalation cost in there. That's why it's coming up to that 76 million.
An example of some that some of us were able to see, we were there for another event, for actually an academic event, but they held it in one of these facilities, which they also rent out to the community. It was on the very high end, not something that we could look at or afford, but it had built-in classroom spaces. It had abilities for at least, would you say, 5 different sporting activities at one time? A community weight room that anybody could come. I mean, so this is not that. I mean, that is nice, but that we also understand a commitment to, as we continue to say, but I understand people don't always understand the fact that the 430 is very strategic, because that would be no tax rate increase. And I understand that some people seem to struggle with understanding that, so I want to make sure that we reiterate that. That's why we're looking at that amount. But that is by far I know the word Taj Mahal was used, but for example, we've seen other districts that have extraordinary facilities. We're looking for safety for students. And I don't want to just say students. I have to think about our staff too. Our coaching staff and individuals that are on all of these different, whether it's robotics or whether it's our core, whether it's our, whatever it might be, staff that are also out there in the extreme heat.
So 4 or 5 years ago, I think we were at the acceptable level at about, what, 17 million a structure?
Yeah,
Is that about right?
I think it was a little more than that.
Yeah, it was each, I
About-
think it was in the
yeah.
54 range total,
So the 54 is now 71?
76.
The
Yeah.
54 is because of all those inflation numbers and
Yeah.
costs.
20%, right?
Yeah.
In just a few years, which, I mean, that's just where we are, unfortunately.
So how about this as a suggestion for our Monday regular meeting, our workshop meeting, maybe a special meeting? We do a little more of a deep dive into the detail that you're seeking, John.
Yeah.
And that way we kind of, I also would say, hey, let's ask the superintendent for deeper dive topics that we want to go into specific to the props. If there's a,
I think another thing I'd like to see is if there's a chart or something that you can come up with, Martha, that kind of shows the days where this facility would be utilized based on the past 2 or 3 years,
Okay.
right? So there's a
Okay.
level there on that wet bulb all-in temperature where the facility would have to be utilized for, say, band and football, any type of outdoor. So give me an idea of
Well, it's not just
how
wet
much
bulb.
utilization. Huh?
Correct.
It'd be rain days. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah, I know, but I want to know about the
Heat.
safety aspect's going to be the heat aspect in my mind. I mean, the rain's going to be the.
I think
but-
lightning's in there too, though, John.
What?
Lightning.
We can certainly look
True.
at that,
But you
track the
wouldn't be-
weather, and then give you a number of days so that you can kind of get an idea of when we're not able to, or when we're having to adjust the times, which we understand is a hardship for families.
Right,
Nobody wants to bring your child up at 5 a.m.
right.
and would
So-
the surface lend itself for tennis to be able to practice in
I
that?
don't
About water
know
polo.
about
Can we do water
that.
polo in there?
I don't know about pickleball, though.
Only if they're playing,
Just
You
kidding.
can,
Like
maybe
in
you
the-
can do Rubico.
Yeah, we
I
could
mean,
look
Grass
at that, Tina.
courts.
I don't know. But actually, I think possibly because of the one we saw,
If you can do aerobotics
we
in there,
will
you can do
check.
tennis
Right,
in there.
because you could put a the
Rubico
flat-
is a slower pace than clay, but I mean, at least you can play
Sure.
on an
Try it.
indoor
Yep,
court.
we
and
will,
then
we will look
there's-
into that for more discussion on Monday.
So, John, I reached out to Jeff Linder, the infamous meteorologist today, and said, can you give me weather data for the last 3 years? And he's pointed me to a site. But now I recognize that the Hooks Airport data is not going to be as good as the wet bulb data. And so if there's a chart that shows over the course of the last couple years, to your point, so we have a better sense. So you can show us the 100 days. When did those 100 days occur? Would
Right.
be my interest. That way I won't have to do this Jeff Linder data dive that I was planning to go do.
Dr. Gutierrez, you mentioned earlier that we fall into class 3 of how this is classified. Do you have an idea of what that requires? I would guess that each class has certain requirements or certain rules that they expect you to follow. Are we in the middle, or are we at the high end or the low end? How does that class come into play as far as determining what we have in the building, whether, for example, air conditioning?
So the class really is just geographical. So the further south you are, and there's a chart, I could pull that up, it's on UIL. So class 2 would be further northern United States. Anything along the south, southwest is all class 3, just due to heat, humidity. So there's really not anything we can do from a class standpoint. That's purely geographical, set by wet bulb globe and how hotter it is further in the south.
So it doesn't give us guidelines as to how we should practice, when we should practice for that particular level.
Yes, on each one of these levels, so like say the green level, those are normal activities. So you can participate. You could have 3 separate you could have practice outside. It does specify breaks. The further you go down, it limits the amount of time you can be outside. It specifies the time intervals and how many required water breaks that you're to provide. So each one of these levels and color coding here is very simplified. But for UIL purposes, guidance to coaches, there's a little bit more information on how to manage all of these factors.
And what I'm interested in is 92 and above, right? I'm interested in the black for whatever chart you come up with. And you can do the rest of it, but I just want to know where the black, how many days we've got black.
Any other questions for Dr. G? Mr.
So I
Bowles,
understand real
Superintendent?
quick, the 5 a.m. practices, is that to avoid the hot afternoon practices? Yes, ma'am. Have we ever considered, and I know this would be a huge change, but 76 million is a lot of money. Have we ever considered shifting our start time for high school? I know a lot of other districts in Texas start high school later, and that would utilize the early morning hours with tolerable temps for practices and have the kids inside the school building in air conditioning in the later in the afternoon temps.
We have looked at different variations, and at different times, we've had parents question that. So we've certainly looked at that just based on parent concern. We do have a large number of students at work, and so sometimes there's a challenge where if they, depending on when practice is and when they have to finish practice to get to whatever other responsibilities they may have for their family or for themselves.
We also have some groups that practice at nighttime, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so they,
Those kind
a lot of variations on the time, but we'll certainly continue to consider that. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Great job. Appreciate it.
Okay, so Dr. Z, what I heard a request from John was to help map out the experience, the bulb experience, and then two, maybe a little bit more of a dive into the design specs, yeah, for the multipurpose facilities. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call an audible. What are we going next here? This was the question about. Okay. I'm going to call an audible here, and we're going to take a recess. For me, let's just check for a second. We need to take a break and go eat. Yes. So could this just be information that the board members kind of consume on their own?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
review this and send any questions that you may have. It's very self-explanatory, and then we can certainly continue any conversations. I don't think you'll have many, but if you do, we can discuss it when we reconvene next week.
Okay. So we're going to conclude this report,
Yes, sir.
and the next report will be advocacy.
Yes, sir.
And so let's take a recess here. We'll go grab a quick bite and then reconvene. So the time is now 7:57.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're passing out some handouts. I just put together an agenda of talking points. So we'll start with the one that says agenda. We can jump around if you need to, but I just thought that we would provide an update on a lot of the things that we have learned so far. As we've kicked off the legislative session, it's still very, very early. We have a long ways to go. However, we're monitoring that, so wanted to share a little bit of information that's pertinent to school districts. So first of all, we have the TASA-TASB Legislative Conference. That is February 18th, and that is in Austin, and it's from 8 a.m. to noon with an option to visit the Capitol after that. And so we did want to give the opportunity to the president or to the board to have a discussion about who would like to attend that.
I think currently we have 2 people signed up. So they will continue that work. You're not part of it, you are. Mr. President.
I'm interested. I wanted to hear more details about it.
So what we know so far is we've been in the past, and it's they have offered in the past at the conference where they'll give you an update of the bills so far that pertain to education. They will have a couple of members come and give updates. I know last time we went, they had Buckley, right? Come, and he's also the
head of the Education Committee for the Senate again, and so I don't know if they'll have him, but that's the type of person that they had come talk to us in the past, just to give us an update of where they are on the bills. And then it's just an informational session that we get, and then the afternoon is not an organized, and that would just be up to the board if they wanted to do that. And I think that we can decide that once we talk about the Raise Your Hand Texas opportunity, because I don't know. And so I know Mark and Tina already visited with our members when we were at our last Raise Your Hand Texas, so it would be the choice of the board whether or not to use that afternoon to do that. Again, sharing our priorities, so.
I know that we had talked about at our base in Texas, maybe lots of opportunities to talk to Representative Buckley, even though he's not our representative, because he is the head of the education.
So would you want to get both the House and the Senate committee chair? I mean, why just one? If you're going to go for one, try and get both.
I think so, but to date, we don't know the head of the House.
Got it.
That should be pretty soon.
Right.
So that's
But-
why we were focusing on Buckley, because that's the one we found out.
Hopefully, they'll have someone appointed by, hopefully.
Okay, so as far as right now, the plan is, we talk about, so the board want that day, or we want to reserve that for
So we can jump to that. I had it at the end, but why don't we go ahead and jump to that? So the last agenda item I had was the Raise Your Hand Texas Board Advocacy Training. And so we have been involved in that for several sessions. And so I did want to just provide the board with an update that at our previous session that we just went to, the things that we were able to experience there is that they provided us testimony training. So they provided us the opportunity to learn how to testify in front of committees. They gave feedback. They did, in my opinion, a very good job of simulating what testimony is like. Tina and Dr. Z testified. And so, Dr. Z, would you say that that was similar to the real?
It's very similar to what it, I mean, even the way they had the sidebar conversations before getting up and down, and some paying attention to, some not. It was very, questions that were asked. And I know they do, like, I gave testimony on school safety a couple months back. Today I was called by the Texas Review because they knew that and wanted to follow up. So I know that people do monitor that based on the conversation I had today.
I thought it was a great experience. Excuse me. It wasn't, I am joking about it. I kind of modified what I was going to say because Marley used, and I didn't want to repeat everything that she was saying, so, but I felt like I kind of built on hers and more from an emotional standpoint than a facts thrown in, but more from a parent standpoint. I thought it was a good learning experience. I thought there was a lot of great information given to us. You know, I think it was invaluable, and I think we came back with a lot of good stuff to enhance our advocacy here at Tomball, because I know we're building on it. I know it's not something that we have done. Not necessarily, I don't want proactive's not the right word, but we're wanting to do more advocacy here at Tomball. So I think this is help. I think it will help immensely. I think it's we're heading in the right direction to make it even stronger tool for us.
So we had the opportunity after the morning of going through that training in the afternoon, we were able to, we had preset appointments with our representatives. And so unfortunately, we did meet in every office of the four listed there, Oliverson, Bell, Harless, and Swanson. We only met with, Oliverson was the only actual member that we met with. That's because they had named the speaker and they had the opportunity to go home, which is rare for them, so they took that opportunity. So we were able to meet with their chiefs of staff or staff members. So they have explained to us several times, though, through our board advocacy training, that that is a valuable experience and that you shouldn't turn that experience away because they're very connected. So we were able to do that. And we were able to provide our legislative priorities to them, which you have copies of. And then we use the backup information, which is the stapled sheet, to give some specifics that are aligned to Tomball. When we say safety cost us money, we were able to then say, this is how much we were short on safety in Tomball, just to provide them that backup information so that they could see it as exactly how it affects our district and the things that we are asking for.
And I think,
No, go ahead.
I think we were very intentional with at each of the offices that we went to, that we offered, said, call us, we want to be a resource, we want, if you have any questions, call us, we'd love to help and give you input and stuff. So the 3 aides for Bell, Harless, and Swanson, or Alderson too, took our numbers and stuff, so hopefully we kind of helped quantify those relationships and that they're reaching out.
The number, I would say that through all of the Raise Your Hand Texas training and, that we've learned a lot so far, but one of the most consistent messages that we've heard is relationships and connections and building those relationships, the power of building those relationships when you're not in session, when you're during the off year and when they're not in session, but, we're in session now, we're utilizing that time. But just the connection and the small world of being able to connect. When we were in Sam Harless's office, his chief of staff was a student at Klein Collins when I was administrator there. I would have never known that had we not gone there and met. And then when we were in Oliverson's office, one of the staffers in there, roommate was a Tomball grad who we all know, the family, and so he was able to connect and help with that relationship. And is that the young man that you knew personally? Yeah. Yes. So just, even though all of the members weren't there, we were able to make those connections and help build those relationships, and so I think that that'll benefit us. And so, yes.
So, the charts that Zach showed earlier, the cost of things going up, since 2019, based upon the math, the ask is $7,725 per student versus the current $6,000, $36 million is what that total is. So, shared that information. The next goal
And that's just to keep us flat.
The next bullet is $7 million. The third bullet is $2 million. And then the last bullet is $7 million. Right? And so I think one of the goals of providing this was to quantify what it means to be. And if I continue on, get to the heart of this, but we're talking quite a bit about our culture. Not to assume that the national issues are local issues. I think that's an opportunity for us to continue to provide that message beyond just the money. Because frankly, money, right, if they only were going to show up and ask for more. So giving them assurances that the values this will preserve. So that was one thing.
And we were advised, and it backed up what we had already talked about as a team before we went in, to not go in and lead with anything about vouchers. That's not what we were going in and leading the conversation with. We just went in to talk about the needs of Tomball and not necessarily to fight against an issue. Yeah. They brought it up to us, yes. Right. Right. So our next session at Raise Your Hand Texas is April 9th through 11th. And part of this visit is that on April 10th, they are wanting us to visit the Capitol as a larger group. And so that's what we wanted to have a discussion about as to what that would look like and who would travel. So.
And let me go back, right? I mean, if we go back to the beginning on all this, that quote-unquote larger group was supposed to be part of our grassroots advocates. So it's not just a larger group of the board, it's going to be a larger group of the individuals that have been working with us during this process as well.
And we started a list at the last session. Staff, different community members that we thought would be good to invite to come.
And a lot of them were participated, right, in our
Strategic planning, the bond, I mean.
well, the listening circles.
Yes, listening circles, I mean, it was a broad spectrum of community members, family members, staff
Yeah,
members.
because I know a lot of people in the listening circles were maybe even expected or anticipated that we'd be back in touch with them about going to Austin with us.
So I think that we should just discuss, and we'll take any lead that you give, but I think that we should consider the strategy behind it too, because if we want a large enough group to make a presence, but we don't want the group, we're worried that if the group is too large, we might lose some effectiveness, because you can only put so many people in a member's office at a time. We don't want to ask someone to give their full day going to Austin and then you do one 10-minute visit. So we want the group to be the right size, large enough to be a Tomball presence, but not so large that we lose the effectiveness of the group. So that's just something that we talked about considering.
It's probably not even practical, but how would we reserve a committee room or one of the meeting rooms to have a larger group meet with the representative?
So Natalia shared that those are not available, that it's almost like when housing opens up for a conference, that they do it earlier on and it opens up in one day and it's first come, first serve, and they're snatched up in about an hour.
Okay.
But we did check. 'Cause
Got
we
it.
asked that question.
Seemed like we were able to use a committee room on the day where Tina and Martha were able to testify. It was great. And we had 4 representatives. We had Stan Lambert. We had Matt Shaheen. We had your friend, Umble. And I'm blanking out on but they were all Republican. All 4 were Republican.
And they gave a lot of advice.
They did.
Yeah, sorry.
But I don't remember. the
Cunningham?
fourth.
Yes, Charles Cunningham was the 3rd one, and then I'm blanking out on who the 4th one. All were Republican legislators.
So do you want to discuss
So
now?
the question on the table is, how do we utilize the February 8th opportunity, which presents an opportunity to visit with our legislators on the afternoon, as well as how to utilize the April 10th day. The April 10th day is the larger listening circles and we talked about that being a day trip.
Yes.
With the likes, and we were brainstorming. You want me to read this?
Beyond those that are already going to have to be there for Raise Your Hand Texas.
Right.
That group still has to go for the.
Okay.
rest of our home.
But brainstorming, this is not final in any way, but we were just kicking around ideas. Bruce Hillegeist, Larry Chapman. I wrote down Teresa.
That, I will
Okay.
say her name.
Okay.
But that one.
We talked about Beth Casper, right? Vanessa Coronado.
From campus, if we were to take.
Yeah.
if we were to take
Lori, the mayor. Jeff L.
Jeff, we talked about Lori Adams.
Oh, Jeff L. Yeah,
Jeff.
I did. I'm like, wait, I can't remember. Gary Boudreau, Charlotte. So names. We have a list of names here. I could go on, but the idea would be, we'd get some sort of bus, not a yellow bus, but a bus. Meet at an early time, go up, arrive mid-morning, 9 o'clock, something like that. Have these appointments with our legislators. Some point mid-afternoon, get back on the bus, head south to arrive back here, 5, 6 o'clock, something like that. So that's kind of the idea. Mark, what are your thoughts?
But Mark, is it really, I mean, I'm reckoning back to what Amy mentioned a while ago that kind of resonated with me. Taking a group of 5 people and having them have one visit, maybe they don't feel like they've done much, right? So maybe it's a smaller group than that? Yeah. Right. Well, how many, what's the delegation size? Anyone, who else besides Bettencourt on the Senate side other than the committee, the chairman? Anybody else? Who else on the Senate side besides Bettencourt other than the chairman? Huh? Yeah. So nobody. So Bettencourt plus the chair. Okay.
So the number that Raise Your Hand Texas encouraged was 10
Meetings?
people.
Because you can really only fit about 5 people.
Right.
And that's a lot.
Except Sam Harless. He's got big old office.
Yeah, he does.
This is huge. I mean, it takes forever to find it.
He's got a large
It's
office.
down, but
It's because he's a
nice.
chair.
It's a nice office.
He's a chairman.
It must be, the last time I was in his office, it was a real skinny reception room.
He
Different.
just
Yeah,
moved.
no, it's really big now. Yes, he's in the main building.
So,
So there you go.
Ideas?
10 is our number. And we figure out how to optimize with the 10, how many meetings that is. And then whatever board members in addition to that.
Yeah, we would work with board first and then any additionals based on. Is there anybody that knows they would have a conflict on that day?
But
or is it not?
wait. Again, going back to the original premise. The original premise is for the board to be kind of the host, right? I mean, unless y'all changed something since I was attending. This was really, we wanted our grassroots people to be the main bearer of the message. Is that different?
No, but a board member can still be part of the group, just let.
Yeah,
They
but,
left that up to us. It's what we want. Like they said from the beginning, you get out of it what you want to,
right.
what you need or want to get out of it. So they haven't been so specific.
For instance, like, so the 5 of us already met with these representatives with the priorities. So I would think that our part on that day would not be to go and repeat the meeting that we had with them, but for them to hear other voices from Tomball and for us to be there as support and host. But there could be other board members that weren't a part of the 3 that were there who want to participate, 1 per group, to advocate with our grassroots group.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say all board members who want to go can go, but I would recommend, based on the process that I was part of, that it's our grassroots people that are leading the conversation. Yeah. Education committee members. And just for the record, I will not be around in April. I'll be out of town, so I won't be able to participate.
Okay.
Any other board members that would like to attend, and then we can work from there on how many others go down this list?
Are you saying you recommend that like less of us go and
No,
more
all of us can
community-
go.
More community
but
members
But
should go?
when you pick the 4 or 5 people to go into the members' office for the meeting, I don't see that there ought to be more than 1 board member. Okay, maybe 2, but the way this process was envisioned, I thought, was to try and get the voice of the community to be the advocate to the members.
And the priorities were specifically developed from the community voice in the listening circles.
Right.
So the community members fed what the priorities are. And so it is appropriate for the community members to then go share their stories about why these are the priorities of the school district.
That they came up with, that they developed.
Yes.
Okay, so your core 10, hosted by whatever board members can make the April 10th day trip. Sounds like where we're kind of gelling. Sure, sure.
Is April 10th a larger day for raise your hand?
That's just the day
Like
that
the other
they,
districts that are participating?
Yeah, so
all-
the
all-
so do we want to talk about who else is involved in this? What other school districts?
so we have Prosper and Pecos. Yes.
3 names.
Port Aransas,
Pearland.
Pearland, and Temple. I mean,
Temple.
What's the big?
Plano.
what's the-
and
Plano.
Plano, Teresa.
2 Ds, the rest Ps.
Plano, Prosper, Temple, Pecos.
And all of them have different, similar but different issues. Port Aransas has 83% recapture.
But what's their enrollment?
500 students,
Yeah.
of which 25% don't come from outside their district. They're in a world of hurt. Anyway,
But they have a floor. They have the tax at the floor.
they keep passing VATREs, and they keep passing like $100,000 bonds to be able to buy stuff. It's pretty bad. Yeah, they passed a VATRE. Yeah.
Okay, so hearing that, we'll work on the core 10, and if it's okay with you, Dr. Pratt, we'll work with the advocacy committee to
Yes.
create that list and then share with the whole board and to organize that day.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, anything else on there that you would like to highlight?
Well, eventually, we'll need to know the 3rd board member who's attending the Raise Your Hand Texas
I guess it's
session.
me,
Michael?
because John's out.
Yep.
I was gonna,
And then on
Let you
here,
do it.
we do not have to go through all of the things that I've noted here. This just does provide you an update on the things that we've learned from legislative so far. It gives you Lieutenant Governor Patrick, his priority bills, on here, we have the governor released his 7 emergency items last night, which a couple of them are education items, and those are the only items that can be decided on in the first 60 days of the session. And then the Chapter 37 is something that we're going to continue to monitor. That's not part of our legislative priorities on our sheet, but there is a lot of talk about that in the state. And so I was able to attend a session on that and learned a little bit about things that they want to change, and it's really about removal from the classroom, some things that they want considered, a lot of that around special education.
You're talking about the
rules.
Chapter 37 rewrite?
Yes,
Got it.
yes.
It's basically discipline.
Discipline, school safety, but a lot of the changes that are being talked about have to do with special education students and also just overall rules around removals of students from classrooms in educational settings.
Thank you.
Is that?
We're good?
So can we go back and look at one just real quick? And so that takes us back to the Towson TASB February 8th legislative day. So we know there's a presentation in the morning, in the afternoon. It's open. So are we, as a group, advocating that we stick around and try and hit the other, maybe not Tom, but maybe to see if we can actually get in-person meetings? It's going to be during the session, who knows? But
If we're up there, might as well take a shot at Swanson, Harless, and Bell. And, okay, Buckley. Okay.
I'm open to doing that, but I probably, maybe not make the morning or all of the morning, but either at least for the afternoon.
Sounds like Mark and Tina will be with you.
Tell them my rep meeting.
Okay, sounds great. Tina, Mark, anything else on advocacy you want to make sure is the advocacy committee?
Real quick on that though, can we utilize Natalia or others to help us get those meetings? Get what? Get the meetings on the 18th, after the 18th. Natalia help us?
I mean, it's not a raise your hand Texas, but she's always been helpful, so we can let her know.
Who-
And if
who-
not, we've had luck just.
Who got the
reaching out.
meetings, who arranged the meetings?
Amy and Linda.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just
Well,
reached out.
Didn't mean to.
oh, there was also a little, you want to highlight, Amy, you want to highlight the item that was brought as a shelf keepsake?
Yes. Each representative, some have not received yet until we meet them in person, received a authentic, signed Tomball High School state baseball that the players signed, and it's in a nice little case. They have in the offices, if you have been there, they do have a lot of keepsake items on their shelves. They do have items representing the school districts that they represent, and so we added that to their shelves.
Thank you
And
for
they
that.
already have helmets.
Thank you, Janice.
They do, some
I
have
understand you had to work some magic to do that.
been misplaced.
But they all have in the past been given helmets from both of our high schools. too.
Yes, in the past, they have.
Okay, so we have one more thing, advocacy thing?
Tried this before, but we try to come back to basically a day where we invite legislators to the district and we show them kids what we're doing and stuff that we have. So they can see that, we are trying to do the best.
So Mark, Amy and I.
And not one of them responded yes or no. So
Right.
if you don't succeed, try again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I was trying to get started at the end of my presidency, and Amy had graciously said she would help me. So I think Amy and I still, Amy, I need to get with Amy, and so that's what's on the books right now is Amy and I will get
getting
together and work on a bunch of different things that are all geared to that same thing, but I think the the in-district legislative day, if you will, or whatever, that one is definitely part of the broader discussion that we need to have, right, Amy?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, yeah,
Right,
for
at
sure,
this point.
yeah.
But Mark and I did, we planned it all out, we sent out invitations last year. Our reps, or anyone responded, so, so Sam Carlos, he was going to try. Cancel the response, but Mark and I, college try again and shoot for another day.
Well, the other thing that, and y'all can, you know, if y'all want to participate with me and Amy on this, that's fine as well. But this is going to be a little bit more comprehensive because we want to try to maybe formalize invitations coming from the district to different events and maybe get on the calendar these different things like what you're talking about, plus at the, Well, and we want to expand, you know, one of the suggestions that one of our delegation made was you need to have multiple opportunities, because if you just say September 24th is when we're going to have all the legislators come to a football game, well, maybe that doesn't work for them. So we're going to try and give some additional opportunities. Anyways, so those are kind of the things, it's more comprehensive.
As far as new board members, might consider make it an interesting trip for you. Talk to the people that you represent. Also, most of them know talk to them, they will see. We hope to make it go forward.
The idea would be to meet here, get a bus, ride up, be back that same day. So district provides transportation and probably hot coffee and a kolache
I believe so.
and maybe a donut.
Make that happen.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time on this, Amy. Okay, so parliamentary check-in. We're now, we recessed our closed meeting. I believe that's what we did.
Yes.
Okay, and so we want to go back into closed. How do I handle this? Read it again. Okay. The Board of Trustees will convene in a closed meeting for the purposes authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, including but not limited to the following sections and purposes. Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with Board Attorney regarding all matters as authorized by law. Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberation regarding purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation regarding appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. And Texas Government Code 551.076, deliberation regarding security personnel or devices. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in a closed meeting, in a closed session rather, will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meetings. Time is now 9:09 p.m. Central. We will now move to closed session. Okay, we got everybody? Okay. Looks like we're recording.
Yes, sir.
The board will now reconvene in open meeting, and the time is now 10:05 PM Central Time.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see it. Okay.
Moving to board comments, we'll now proceed with any board comments. Please remember, comments are high-level, encouraging, congratulatory, made in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. And so at this time, do any board members have any comments?
Great FFA show.
Fantastic.
Loved it.
Well, Charlie Brown was excellent, and the basketball was good, and last week we had all kinds of fun events in TISD.
Yeah.
Yep, pep rally, Mr. Williams was blue.
Oh,
It was a sight to behold.
he has more fun than the kids, I think. I love his pep rallies.
And, you know, going back to the FFA show, I mean, kudos to everybody working on that from the standpoint of having to scramble and still make it work.
With the weather.
With the weather, yeah. I mean, I know the special needs rodeo, we had to
We will still
postpone
have it, yes.
But you know, everybody working together to scramble on that and make it work out. Kudos to your team, Martha.
Yeah, great
The
job.
team,
We
the
enjoyed
parents,
it.
the students, they all did an amazing job.
Yeah, I agree. Very exciting, always.
And we raised record funds, didn't we?
Yes, we did. 836,000, I believe. And the president has a letter that will be going out to all of the, a nicely written letter that will be thanking all of the buyers. And maybe that's something that we'll do annually.
Yeah, well,
We
Senator-
already have.
What?
That was part of, we've been doing that,
Oh,
didn't we?
No.
I
not
think
from
we
the-
did last year.
from- Did we? Well, we
Oh,
rewrote the
maybe,
letter
maybe
then.
not. Okay.
well, it will renew that practice,
Yeah,
John.
there you go.
It's a good practice.
Yeah, good practice.
Any other board members' comments?
In regards to the ag show, it never ceases to amaze me how our students that are part of that program handle themselves. Their leadership skills, their manners, everything. It gives you goosebumps when you see them and they talk to you. John and I actually had a conversation with a couple, so.
Yeah.
I heard about that. John, did you have any comments about the barbecue team, Jill?
Well, hey,
Just gonna say.
I've already put that on social media myself.
Oh.
Yeah, so the barbecue team, I mean, that's amazing.
It's a really good chili.
It was great chili, and I had to indulge then and try the tomato bisque as well, and that was excellent too. So
Very good.
the kids were very
More to
excited.
come on that.
And then you showed a picture of them practicing.
Practicing this past weekend.
So that's really cool. They seemed excited, very much engaged in what they were doing, and
Good group of kids.
Great
I
to
got
see
to
the
see the
sport.
Silver Stars showcase before they go to compete, and they're looking really good.
Yep.
Really good.
Very
We
good.
have a lot of great kids.
yeah.
Yes, we do. 23,023 today.
Wow,
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
it.
I thought that was a pretty special number. Little Aurora was our 23rd student.
Wow.
It's amazing, as we're still enrolling students in February.
Yes, I know.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So, second,
Motion made by Mr. Lewandowski, seconded by Mrs. Salem. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. The meeting is adjourned. 10:09 PM.
Really adjourned. Stay
Gotcha.
awake.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. That is your belt buckle box. in
I
case
love
you were
it.
Wondering.
Belt